unless you've been living under a rock, or, I don't know, trapped in deep nests without a map, Hollow Knight is probably a name you've heard thrown around before. And now that Silksong has finally released, the fire has been relit. But here's the thing, I really didn't like it at first. My initial playthrough was on the Switch. I made it to the Mantis Lords, had no idea where to go after, and stopped playing. A year later, I bought it again, but on Steam. Don't ask me why. Stumbled around for an hour before moving on to different games. I just didn't get the hype. So what changed? Well, I played Dark Souls. All of them. And apparently that awakened some part of my brain which enjoys suffering in the name of progress. Suddenly, wandering and getting absolutely wrecked by bosses felt kind of fun. I started to crave the challenge. I wanted to suffer. So I picked up my controller, hit start streaming, and tried Hollow Knight for one last time, and went from hater to this might be one of the best games I've ever played. From the moment you drop down into Hallownest, it's obvious that Team Cherry put a lot of love into the game's art style, which made exploring a treat for my artistic brain. However, I use the word exploring very deliberately because the game doesn't guide you, doesn't hold your hand or place convenient quest markers for you to follow, even though at first I really wish it did. It barely even acknowledges that you exist. And yet, the world still feels very alive within the calm. Every area breathes its own mood and identity. Greenpath is one of my personal favourite areas because of its vibrant scenery and flourishing flora. Another great area is the City of Tears in all its majestic glory, but it's also melancholic, caught in an endless reign that echoes of a once great kingdom. The hand-drawn visuals themselves are stunning, not only because they're visually pleasing, but also because they convey the story without the use of dialogue. A broken elevator here, a decaying statue there, or even the way a corpse is positioned. Everything in Hallownest is telling you something. It makes you stop and think and wonder. The world doesn't spoon-feed you the lore, you've got to figure it out for yourself, and that makes the moments of discovery, those little self-made connections, feel all the more powerful. However, Hollow Knight is obviously known for its challenging boss fights. Ah! It's all over! It's all over! No! Oh, jeez, jeez, jeez. Jeez! Jeez! They are, in a word, merciless. But they're also precise and mostly fair, even when they don't feel like it and you're smashing your controller against your desk or your head against a wall. Every boss is a skill check. Can you dodge this? Can you react to an attack fast enough? Can you learn and adapt and grow? These are the concepts that Dark Souls taught me, and that made me approach Hollow Knight in a similar kind of way. The Mantis Lords taught me how to be patient. Hornet taught me how to be aggressive. Soulmaster taught me to never ever assume a boss is dead just because the music stops and a shiny appears on the screen. Yay! We did. I'm out of juice. I don't think we had plenty of juice. Whee! Whoa! No goody. No! He has a face too! The bosses don't just test your reactions, they teach you along the way. Every death is a lesson, and if you pay attention, each attempt should become easier. Then, when you finally win, you can bathe in the satisfaction and relief of a victory well earned. The combat doesn't pat your ego or make you think you're a god, but instead builds your skill and confidence throughout the game. At least, that's how it felt for me. But then there was the final boss that made me doubt everything. I spent 7 hours trying to beat this fight. That's not an exaggeration, I streamed the whole thing. I could have been spending my time being productive, but instead, I slammed my head against the wall trying to fight a luminous god bug over and over and over again. It wasn't just difficult, it was personal. Every time I got closer, the boss could sense it and unleashed another phase I hadn't seen before. But I never felt unfair. Frustrating? Absolutely. But every death was because of something that I had done. I wasn't being punished, I was being sharpened. The game wanted me to beat the boss as much as I did, I just had to switch up my mindset. And after those painful 7 hours, when I finally landed that last hit, when the music swelled and the boss fell, I have never been so happy in a video game. Beating Radiance felt like overcoming a version of myself that thought I couldn't do it. I could finally rest. But not yet. When it comes to navigation, something I am notoriously bad at, it was inevitable that I'd end up lost when traversing the map. However, that's kind of the point. It's the kind of terrifying freedom that made me put down the game at first, but simply slowing down and finding secret paths was reward enough and encouraged me to look outside the box. Not to mention how each new ability you gain changes how you move through the world. Double jumps, wall climbs, dashes, which makes you take note of areas to come back to for later. Hollow Knight trusts you to be curious, and sure, sometimes you get punished for it, but you can't win them all and you'll never forget that wrong turn again. For a game where the main character doesn't speak, Hollow Knight is surprisingly emotional and allows you to form strong attachments to certain characters, most of whom are quirky, tragic, or a little bit of both. There's Cornifer, the jolly mapmaker who hums to himself while you wander through dangerous caverns. His songs make you so happy when you hear them because it gives you hope and familiarity. Quirrell, my personal favourite bug, was a kind traveller with a quiet sadness following him around. I was devastated upon our final meeting at the lake, and I'm not sure why I loved him so much, but I really did. Probably because he was such a bro and helped us battle that annoying jellyfish. Sly was another bug that had my heart. Look at him, he's just a tiny cutie who needed a bit of direction when we first met. Little did we know how talented he was with a nail, and how much we would come to respect each other as our very talented shopkeeper. Obviously, we can't ignore Hornet. There's a whole sequel revolving around her now. I've always liked her, I think we all have, because she's cute, mysterious, and oh my gosh, so powerful. She clearly has her own agenda, and that makes us curious to know more about her. Zoe, however, no thank you. The characters don't overstay their welcome either. They appear, leave their impressions, and disappear before you're ready to let them go. And somehow that made my journey feel more meaningful. Happy endings are rare in this world, so I appreciated my time with each and every one of them. Still not Zoe though. So, why did Hollow Knight as a game stick with me? Because it doesn't just want to entertain you, it wants to challenge you. It doesn't fill you with dopamine every 5 seconds, it makes you earn those moments, and frankly, speaking from experience, it can be addicting to chase that high. The art is stunning, the soundtrack is haunting, and the combat is great. And then when the credits finally rolled, I didn't feel like I'd just finished the game. I felt like I'd come to an end of a very long, painful, but enjoyable journey. A journey I chose to take, and would absolutely take again. If you haven't played Hollow Knight, then what the heck are you doing watching this? I've just spoiled at least 10 things for you. But also play the darn game. Don't bother with Silksong. Just hit that little knight right up. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, you will rage, but trust me, it's totally worth it. You'll learn something about yourself you didn't realize you had in you. Just be prepared to lose a few thousand geo along the way, and a few nights of sleep. But thank you so much for watching this far, and I hope you all have a blissful day. Cassie out!